Hey, good morning everybody. DiStefano here, pianist, composer, writer, teacher. And today I'm going to talk about the 5 worst things about being in the Army band. But before we do that, let me just say, if you're new to the channel, why don't you think about subscribing and hitting that bell. So if you're hoping for salacious headlines or criminal offenses, you're in the wrong place. Because those things certainly happen. And I don't mean to make light of them, but I'm going to deal with more of the everyday aggravation that you will definitely encounter some of these, even if you're only in for a year or two. Those big headline things, hopefully you won't deal with. But Josh, I thought you loved the Army band. I really value sincerity. I've been looking for a used car lately, and it's a huge pain, and those people are all so greasy, and oh yeah, it's fine, don't worry about that little leak, and oh yeah. I like people to be upfront with me. I don't like being lied to. So if I'm getting into something, I want to know the good and the bad. And so that's what this is. These are the aggravations that you will have to deal with in the Army. If you hang around to the end of the video, I will give you the guaranteed secret to maintaining your sanity in the Army band. All right, coming in at number 5. The 5 worst thing about being in the Army band is you have zero control over your own life. This can be small things like going out and having to play a gig that you know is going to just bomb. Spending the day driving around raking up leaves when you have much more important things to do, to much bigger things like having to move your family to an entirely new state after you've only been in place for 11 months, having to deploy. So they have this thing where you can fill out places you'd like to move to, and it's supposed to be, I think they call it the ask. You put your preferences down, and then they consider this when they're deciding who goes where. So you say, wow, I have family on the West Coast, so I would really like to be in Washington State, or if I can't be there, can I be in maybe Alaska or Arizona? A month will go by and they'll come back with, look who's going to upstate New York, woo! And off you go. The number 4 worst thing about the Army band is the bureaucracy you have to jump through to get anything done. It's a bit of a culture of fear. If you need something done and you ask somebody, they have to ask their person and their person, their person. It's this whole springboard waiting for somebody to find the last person on the row who will make the decision. You're working all weekend and you ask your boss, hey, can me and my guys have Monday off because we're working all weekend? Oh, and she says, well, let me talk to the boss. So she talks to her supervisor. I'm not sure, there's a rehearsal, and then they talk to their supervisor, and on and on and on, and before you know it, you work through the weekend, you're back at work on Monday, and nobody's decided, and then somebody comes up to you at the end of the day and says, I thought you guys were supposed to have the day off. Thanks. So why does this exist? Because people do make decisions, and then they get jumped on. You say, oh, this is stupid, go ahead, take the day off, and then somebody gets their ass chewed. You can't just give your people the day off, you have to decide. You could have missed a rehearsal, you could have missed trash cleaning detail, blah, 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 blah. If you get your butt chewed enough for making the decisions, you just stop making them, and you start asking, can I do this, can I do this, can I do this, and the same thing. And it's this perpetuating cycle of nobody wanting to have the buck stop with them. The number 3 worst thing about the Army band is a lack of creative control. I was running a big party band when I was in Germany, and we were going to play this 1,000-year-old beer festival in Mark Groner. And I put together this hip-hop medley of all these tunes. We'd done one year before. It just killed. They just loved it. They thought it was the greatest thing ever. People were, jumping on the tables. So anyway, so I put together another one, a second medley. And towards the end of it, I think second to the last song, I had put in an Eminem song. It was Slim Shady. I put in Slim Shady. And it worked right up to it, and then it broke, and it went into this sort of brass band arrangement of Slim Shady. It was really, really going to be cool. It kind of glued the thing together. And someone came in, and they said, you can't do this. someone from my works came in, and one of my bosses said, "You can't do this." And I said, it's going to be amazing. They're going to love it. It's going to kill. It's going to be huge. This arrangement is great. I don't care. Excuse me. We don't like what Eminem represents. You can't do this. It's not going to happen. And so we had to cut it out. And so when we got to that point in the medley, we just stopped. And then we counted off the tune after it and skipped it. And eventually I ended up putting a different tune in there, but it was never quite as good. And a lot of people in the band are sort of stuck in their ways. So they have things they like to do, and they just keep regurgitating the same stuff over and over again. And while it may have been cool, 10, 15, 20 years ago, at some point it becomes tired and old, and you start to become a little bit obsolete. Of course, sometimes a little oversight can be good. Like I said, I like to push the musical envelope, and I was asked to write something for a Marine tribute to the Marine Corps. And so I scored out this whole thing for the concert band, really interesting chords, lots of sharp 11 stuff going on, a really beautiful, moving thing, and I thought this is going to be wonderful. And again, they scrapped it 2 days before the gig, and a buddy of mine had to jump in and write a new one because I was actually out of town. And in retrospect, it was probably a good thing. While I would have thought it was really cool, and other musicians may have appreciated it, that audience, nothing against the Marines, just, the audience of non-musicians would have thought, why are they playing all these wrong notes? They're destroying my beloved Corps song. In that case, a little oversight was probably good. The second worst thing about being in the Army band is the barracks. Anybody who said living in the barracks doesn't suck has either A, never lived in the barracks, or is B, in the Air Force. Most people that join the Army band are probably in their early to mid-20s. And unless you're already married, you're going to end up living in the barracks. And they might tell you it's like living in an apartment. It's false. It's sort of like a motel. You have lots of single rooms. Sometimes you have more than one person in a room. If you're lucky, you have your own bathroom. If you're unlucky, you'll have a bathroom that's shared among others. And you can expect quarterly inspections where they walk through, they being leadership, will walk through this huge building sometimes with dogs to make sure you guys are keeping your rooms clean, don't have weapons or cocaine or other things that you're not supposed to have. And you might think, well, that sounds fair. Well, somebody could have that. And that's true, but all the people that are married are left alone. If something happens to go wrong and somebody does have something that's dirty, or they find something, or somebody scrawls graffiti on the wall, everybody that lives in that building is going to get punished. And you'll find yourself, coming to clean up, or now pulling guard duty to make sure nobody does graffiti. It's mass punishment for a single offense. This also happens in the Army in general, but in the barracks it seems to be amplified. And that brings us back to number one. The number one worst thing about being in the Army band is working for people that don't value music. Of course, this is not everybody. Some people you'll find yourself working for are great and they love music, and the band will be able to go out and do what it's supposed to do, which is entertain and educate and bring joy to the world, basically, and spread peace through music. But sometimes you will find yourself with bosses, and I'm not talking about in the band itself, I'm talking about several layers up, that just don't value music, and you'll feel like you're back in high school again. At least for me, when I was in high school, the band didn't get much respect. Here's a picture of me fully nerded out in the band. I played drums, so it was slightly more respect than the other ones, but still, unless you were a football player, you were not cool. And that mentality is generally what goes on in the Army as a whole. When I was getting ready to deploy to Iraq for my second tour, we had a new boss. My boss's boss, the battalion commander, didn't see any value in what we were doing. Even though we'd already been there once, we'd spread music, we'd helped build a community with the Iraqis, we'd raised the morale of the troops, all incredibly important positions. He thought we would be more suited to providing a security detail for the second in command of the division. So we were training on how to kick down doors and run convoys and all these very military things. For me, if you're putting the band on the front line to do all that stuff, you're not really setting yourself up for success. Well, I'll probably take some heat from some band guys that are really gung-ho. Alright, as promised, here is my bona fide secret to surviving the lunacy in the Army band and getting through the day. Get on the bus, get off the bus. It's that simple. You get on the bus, you go, you play the gig, you get off the bus, and you go home. The Army has been in place for almost 250 years. That institution does what it does. So if you beat your head against the wall trying to fix everything, all you're going to do is get a headache. Your best bet, get on the bus, get off the bus. If you like what I'm doing here, please think about subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.